Game Week 1 is almost here, and I've finally put together my first FPL draft. I've gone for Haaland, I've squeezed in some very interesting mid-price options, and I've also taken a few risks that could either give us a massive green arrow or leave us regretting them by Saturday night. So let's break down the entire £99.5 million squad and see whether this team can get FPL Elite Calls off to a flying start. Welcome to FPL Elite Calls. This is a faceless FPL channel focused on captain picks, transfers, differentials, and strategies designed to help us climb the rankings. And today we're starting with my Game Week 1 draft. Let's get straight into it. Let's start in goal. I've gone for Lamens at £5 million as my main goalkeeper, with Pickford at £5.5 million as the backup. Lamens is the more interesting pick for me because at £5 million, I'm looking for value rather than simply paying for the most expensive goalkeeper available. The other thing I like about this setup is having Pickford as my second goalkeeper. If I don't fancy Lamens in a particular game week, I have another option to rotate into the team. For Game Week 1, Lamens has Hull City away, while Pickford has Crystal Palace at home. So the big question here is whether I stick with the £5 million option or go for Pickford's home fixture. Moving into defense, this is where I've tried to save some money without completely sacrificing attacking potential. First, O'Reilly at £6.5 million. He's one of the more expensive defenders in this draft, so I need him to justify that price. The reason I'm interested is the attacking potential alongside the possibility of clean sheet points. Then there's Palestra at £5.5 million. He's another player I'm looking at from a value and attacking perspective, although with Fulham away, I'm not expecting this to be the easiest fixture. Next is Ballard at just £5 million. This is one of the picks that makes the squad work financially. At £5 million, I don't need him to be a superstar every week. I need him to give me a decent floor while allowing me to spend money elsewhere. Then we have Senesi at £6 million. He's facing Brentford away, so it's not necessarily the easiest opening fixture, but he's here because I think he gives me a solid combination of defensive points and potential attacking returns. And finally, Hall at £5 million. Hall is another budget option who gives me flexibility. I don't necessarily need all 5 defenders to start every game week. The idea is to have enough options to choose the best 3 or 4 depending on the fixtures. Now we get to the midfield. And honestly, this is probably the most interesting part of this team. First up is Lafay at £6 million. He's one of the players I'm taking a chance on at this price point. The idea is to find someone who can give me a return without needing to spend premium money. Next is Sarr at £6.5 million. This is another pick that I'm hoping can outperform his price. He's not going to be one of the most obvious names in everyone's Game Week 1 team, which is exactly what makes him interesting for this draft. Then we've got Tonali at £5.5 million. At this price, I'm looking for value in a player who can give me another affordable route into the midfield. Solis comes in at £6.5 million, and this is probably one of the more exciting differentials in the entire team. He's the kind of pick that could make this draft look very different from the template. Obviously, with a differential comes risk, but if he starts delivering early, he could become a very interesting FPL option. And finally, Hudson-Odoi at £6 million. Again, this is about value and upside. I'm deliberately avoiding making this midfield completely template because I want players who can potentially give me an advantage over the teams around me. Now let's get to the forwards, because this is where I've spent the big money. Obviously, we have the main man himself, Erling Haaland at £15.5 million. There really isn't much to say about the price. If I'm spending 15.5 million on one player, I'm expecting him to be one of the biggest point scorers in my team. And because of that, he's also my Game Week 1 captain. Then we have the player that I think is going to get a lot of attention. Gonzalo Garcia at 6 million. This is probably the biggest talking point in my entire team. At 6 million, I'm looking at him as a potentially high upside pick, but obviously his minutes and role are going to be extremely important. If he gets the opportunity and starts producing, 6 million could look like a very attractive price, but this is definitely one I'm going to be monitoring closely. And completing the attack is João Pedro at 7.5 million. I like this price point because it allows me to have another potentially explosive forward without needing to sacrifice Haaland. So the attack is basically built around one premium, one mid-price option, and one budget option. So, here's the final team. Lamans and Pickford in goal. O'Reilly, Palestra, Ballard, Senesi and Hall in defense. Lafay, Sarr, Tonali, Zolis, and Hudson-Odoi in midfield. And up front, Haaland, Gonzalo Garcia, and João Pedro. Haaland is captain, João Pedro is vice-captain, and I've got £2 million sitting in the bank. But this is only my first draft, and there's still plenty of time for things to change before the Game Week 1 deadline. So I want to know what you think. Which player would you remove from this team, and who would you bring in instead? Drop your team in the comments. And if you want weekly captain picks, transfer targets, differentials, and FPL strategy, subscribe to FPL Elite Calls. Let's chase those green arrows.